Welcome in, everyone. You're listening to Trackside. I'm joined by News Channel 11's John Janko, and I, of course, Terry Craig. And just like any race, of course, the checkered flag has to fly at some point, and the checkered flag going to be flying on Trackside for this season, the 2025 season. This is our last episode of the year. I believe we got going back in April or May, I believe, or was it in the summer?
I want to say Martinsville Spring was our first race.
Okay, yeah. I guess time flies when you're having a lot of fun. We've had a lot of fun. Me and John, learning the ropes of how to do the whole WJHL Plus and trackside stuff. But hey, we got another action-packed episode for you all. We're going to be looking ahead to the 2026 season. Got a lot of topics that we're going to hit on over the course of the show. But the first one, the one that frankly is at the top of everyone's minds, every NASCAR fan's mind, is what kind of playoff format will we be seeing next season? Not a whole lot of updates as of late. I do remember an interview with the NASCAR officials several weeks ago that did kind of hint at them talking and, contemplating maybe changing it. And obviously we saw the Phoenix race where there was a big push from fans like, hey, we got to change this now. But it doesn't seem like that there's been a whole lot of talk in the past week or so.
Yeah, I know. It's just been really quiet. I kind of talked about this last week running solo here on Trackside, but it just makes me anxious the longer we go without hearing really anything concrete. I think it's a given that we're going to see a change next year, but the longer we go without it makes me think that it's going to be some form of a playoff again, and not really what a lot of people I think are looking for, which is full season points. I think for long-term success of the sport, full season is the way to go. I think we've seen F1 and IndyCar make gains doing full season long points, people viewing them very legitimately and taking them seriously as sports with that particular type of point format in place. And, there's a lot of options on the table, whether that is full season, whether it's the return of, kind of OG chase, 10 races, points reset, or even a modified version of the playoffs with the 3-race final round. But I think regardless, I think people are ready for the change, and NASCAR just needs to say something at this point.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence whether I want full season points or that original chase. I think either system is fine, but I feel like I'd lean more towards the full season points. And at the end of the day, I want our best drivers to be showcased. I'm kind of tired of us having to come in, talk about the 16th place driver or folks in the back of the pack. We need to put our stars, on the pedestal. And I think that NASCAR sees that. They understand that. It has been a little frustrating to not already have that answer, but I'm sure that the brilliant minds of NASCAR at the top of NASCAR are thinking things over. So hopefully we find out something, before the end of the year, obviously before Speed Weeks in Daytona. So yeah. I'm optimistic that we will hear of a change, but the longer it does get drawn out, the more it makes me think that they might not have been ready to overhaul things.
Yep.
But I don't know. These things do take time.
Well, you think of that promotional cycle for NASCAR too, and I feel like you really start to see the NASCAR ads pop back in during the NFL playoff push. Fox has got the Daytona 500. You'll always see advertisements for that during their NFL games. So maybe closer to that point in time before those kind of ads start coming out, maybe later this month we start to hear something, or right at the start of the new year. I think they got to get ahead of it, though, and start building up some hype, though.
Yeah, and I do think that fans will be, looking to hear of that build-up and see that build-up. But I'll tell you what, a driver that has a lot of hype and build-up as he transitions into the Cup Series after a fantastic Xfinity Series season, although he fell just short of the championship, let's say it like that in Phoenix. Connor Zilisch. Going to be going into the Cup Series next season. Randall Burnett going to be his crew chief. What are the expectations for the kid? Obviously, he absolutely showed out in the Xfinity Series. A lot of wins, although he doesn't have a championship to show for it. A lot of wins, a lot of expectation, he showed a lot in the Xfinity Series. So for a driver that young, I believe 19 still, maybe 18, I had to double check on that, but a driver who's still a teenager going to be moving up to the Cup Series. What kind of expectations do you have for him?
I think the expectation realistically should be that he just needs to kind of get his foot get his footing and start, look for top 20s. I mean, these are Trackhouse cars. We've not seen a crazy amount of speed from them outside of road courses, in the 2025 season. I think the realistic expectation for him is to just make top 20s, whether that's ovals or I think top 10s at road courses maybe. I think in reality, the expectations for him, I think it's playoffs or bust. Like, I think people believe that he is going to win at least one road course race this next season and punch his ticket to the playoffs, if that's even how we still do things. But I think he goes out and wins one of those road course races. I think him and SVG are due for some duels on the road course. I know we only got to see him in one road course race in a next gen car, I think, which I think ended in a crash for him, unfortunately. But I think he's got to make the playoffs.
I think the curse of running very well in the Xfinity Series and just showing as much promise as he has, his expectations are going to be high. I mean, I'd love to sit here and say, similar to what you said, just go out there, get top 20s, learn from a great teammate in Ross Chastain, continue to improve on the road courses. Obviously got SVG as a teammate, so we already feel as if Zilich is going to do well on the road courses. And when you got a teammate like SVG who wins every single one of them, you should be running well on road courses. So I'd love to say, just top 20s, let's go out there, finish races, no DNFs. But that's what you say to an Xfinity Series or Truck Series driver who just, had good seasons. Well, Connor Zilich had an all-time season last year in Xfinity Series. Should have came away with the championship. So I say for a lot of fans and a lot of people around the sport, they're going to have high expectations for him. And some would say just top 20s and just avoiding DNFs might not be enough for this guy. So what do I think he'll do? I think he'll be okay on ovals. I think that he's going to have moments when he's going to be scrapping it, and there are going to be moments when he might be able to ride in the top 5 or top 10. I think my eyes will be on road courses for him. Could he potentially win one? Very well could. I mean, SVG as a rookie racking up wins, at the road courses with no Cup Series experience in the past. So I think seeing how SVG's run at road courses, that does set the bar pretty high for Connor Zilich.
And I think it's interesting, too, as far as unless there's some last-minute change, I'm pretty sure he's the only rookie for the class of 2026.
At least the only notable one.
Yeah, so, he's going to run away with Rookie of the Year, but I think that just in terms of comparison, like there's no other rookie struggling out there to compare to, so, you're going to compare him to the rest of the Cup Series, basically, which I don't know. I hope that doesn't get in his head, and I hope there's people at Trackhouse that have those sort of like realistic expectations as a rookie. I feel like the last driver who entered the Cup Series with the amount of hype that we've seen from Connor Zilich is maybe Joey Logano. And I just remember the struggles he had in those early seasons, and a lot of people wrote him off. I mean, Joe Gibbs wrote him off before he went to Penske. So I hope they can learn kind of from the mistakes of how it was handled when Joey entered the Cup Series and just the amount of hype, which I think Zilich may be even more hyped up than Logano was coming into the Cup Series. But it's important just from the mental side for them to keep things kind of realistic for him and kind of sequence his development as he moves through this first season here.
Yep, and just one quick thing before we head into break. Did want to mention one notable driver change in the Cup Series. Daniel Suarez moves to Spire, the former Joe Gibbs Racing and Trackhouse guy, going to be moving to Spire's third big, I'd say Spire, a notable ride in the Cup Series. How do you think he's going to do this year?
Yeah, it's probably the best equipment he's had since leaving Joe Gibbs. That's a Hendrick-affiliated team at Spire there. They've got good race cars. They've got speed. It's just a matter of is Daniel Suarez the driver to get that speed out of the car? I think he's an upgrade over Justin Haley in that 7 car, but he's got 2 teammates that at any given week can run pretty fast with McDowell and obviously Hocevar. So it's really going to come down, I think, comparison to his teammates there at Spire as to whether this is a successful season or not.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, Daniel Suarez just has to perform. Things didn't go his way at Joe Gibbs Racing. Some would say that he had the worst car over there when he was there. Things didn't truly go his way at Trackhouse. So obviously this is his third ride, and I think it's his last chance in the Cup Series. He has to perform at Spire. Some would say that the 7 car is supposed to be the head of the stable at Spire, but as you said, he does have teammates that can run well, who have run well in the Cup Series. So I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure on him, but I think Daniel Suarez is a guy that can handle that pressure, and I think that we very well could see him perform at a smaller team like Spire, but Spire, they do have resources. They are a bit of an underrated team in the sense that they do have that Hendrick Motorsport alliance, and we have seen guys like Carson Osvar run very fast over there. So I do think that Daniel Suarez needs to come in, be a leader, and just frankly run better than the drivers similar to him. You got to run better than your teammates, especially at a team like Spire. But hey, on the other side of this break, going to be talking about a few drivers that will have some new voices on the top of the box, and also going to touch on the Truck Series and the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. I guess that we're talking 2020.
I still wrote Xfinity in the show notes.
Yeah, I think since
we're used to that.
Yeah, that's gonna be a mouthful next season. So yeah, that is gonna be something that we all have to get used to. But hey, plenty more Trackside on the other side of this break.
All right, welcome back to Trackside as we look back on the 2025 season and look ahead to 2026. There were some drivers that really struggled in ways that we have not seen them struggle before in the 2025 season. And those drivers are going to have some new crew chiefs to kind of propel those teams forward. And we're going to start with a couple of those guys. Ross Chastain has a new crew chief for 2026. His name is Brandon McSwain. He comes to the team from Hendrick, which feels like a really big get. He's replacing Phil Surgeon, obviously. So with everything we saw from the one team this year, this last season, we saw them win a Coca-Cola 600. But outside of that, it seemed like Ross and the one team was very quiet. So what do you think a crew chief change does for them?
I think that this change will help them on Saturdays. And I feel like comparing Ross Chastain performance on Saturdays in practice and qualifying compared to how he raced on Sundays is like night and day. And I do think that it takes a guy on top of the box that knows the ins and outs of the car, how the car works, to give Ross Chastain to unload fast. And that's just something that he wasn't doing. I was appalled early in the season when he would qualify the car in the 30s or the lower 20s, but flip the script on Sundays and top 15, top 10, and getting scrappy finishes. And we even saw Ross Chastain get a little, frustrated early on in one of his media appearances about their qualifying and practicing efforts and not unloading fast. So I don't think that they were necessarily that far off in the sense of how they were racing on Sundays. It's just they had to make up so much ground after failing on Saturdays. And I think that is where this team needs to turn the page.
Yeah, you look at a guy like Brandon McSwain, who was the car chief for William Byron's number 24 car, and that car obviously is always near the top of the charts in practice and qualifying. So obviously I think that expectation for improvement on Saturdays is there for that one team. And like you said, I mean, he is just the best driver at getting the most out of a car. I think that comes from his days running backmarker Xfinity cars about 10 years ago now. And I think if they do unload with speed, I think it's going to be important for him to kind of learn how to drive a fast car. It's like the adjustment that Chase Briscoe had to make this season. Ross can push a car to the limit, sometimes step over it, but if you've got a fast car, then it's going to be really easy to step over that limit. So if you're driving all out, you got to learn how to manage that. Another big switch, Kyle Busch, who had probably his worst or second worst statistically season if you compare 2024 to 2025 last season. He's got a new man as well, and it's Jim Pullman coming up from the Xfinity Series, longtime crew chief with Justin Allgaier with that 7 team. So I've got high expectations for that duo right there. If Kyle Busch has anything left in the tank, I think Jim Pullman can get it out of him. I think it's a fantastic hire by the Richard Childress Group.
I think it's a great hire. I believe Jim Pullman had some JRM ties coming from that organization, and that team just needs life. They sneakily, I believe, got 10 top 10s on the season. That's something that I think Kyle Busch wanted no wins, of course. So they sneakily had a decent season, but there are just too many times last season when you kind of forget about Kyle Busch, and the only time you see him is when he's getting lapped and he's running in 26th.
Or wrecking.
Or wrecking a lot of DNF. So that team just needs life. They need to recreate the life that Kyle Busch had in his initial start with Richard Childress Racing, when he was able to click off 3 wins pretty early on with the organization. And shortly after that, it just seemed like it's just been a snowball effect going downhill, downhill, downhill. So we know that car has speed. We've seen it have speed. We've seen it go to victory lane. It just falls back on how much are they willing to put in this team in order to get them to run well. So hopefully Jim Pullman can be that catalyst for Kyle Busch, because it is a little sad to see such a good driver, such a Hall of Fame driver, all the wins he has, championships. It's upsetting to see the way that he's run, over the course of this year.
Yeah, and it's hard to say, it's not just a bad season at this point. It's a trend. It's 2.5 years of performance like this. I think interesting, too, is how will Randall Burnett, his former crew chief, do with Connor Zilisch this year? I mean, we've talked about the struggles that Trackhouse has had with its cars, and I think that'll be an interesting pairing there. I think it's a good veteran presence on the pit box for Connor Zilisch, someone that can kind of keep emotions in check. Obviously, he's dealt with maybe the biggest hothead in our sports history with Kyle Busch. So it'll just be a matter of if they can unload with speed, I think, for the 88 car with Zilisch.
Yeah, and I think that this is a good switch for Randall Burnett, because you're going from a driver with so much Cup knowledge, not as much knowledge on the next-gen side. So that could have been a bit of a roadblock between Randall Burnett and Kyle Busch. So you switch that from a driver who has little to no experience in the Cup Series. So maybe those two could build together. So that does kind of add to, my optimism for a young driver like Connor Zilisch to run well in the Cup Series. So there's going to be a lot of different names on top of the boxes for several different drivers in the Cup Series. But let's talk a little bit about a potential or a new alliance, Haas and Hendrick. What do you think about that one?
I think that's a great move. I mean, anytime you can ally yourself with Hendrick Motorsports, you're gonna do that. I think just in terms of where the speed is across the manufacturers, Ford is definitely the one that struggles the most. Yeah. Teams can make speed, but if you're just a single car operation, it's hard to make that work. So I think putting yourself with Hendrick in Cup and Xfinity or O'Reilly is a really smart decision. I think Cole Custer is a better driver than people give him credit for, and I think if you put him in faster cars, he can go get you a top 15. He can get you a top 10 every now and then. So I think people should expect an improvement out of the 41 car in 2026. And then with that Xfinity lineup, that's a really solid lineup too. Going back to Chevys with Sam Mayer and Sheldon Creed. Maybe Sheldon can get his first win in a Chevy. I don't know how deep the Hendrick alliance goes, but it sounds like Hendrick's going to have a full-time car as well in the Xfinity Series next year with Corey Day in the 17. So, I mean, maybe they can get some more wins out of their Xfinity program too.
I think it's a bit of an indictment on the Blue Ovals, the Fords, because you're just losing these alliances, these cars. I mean, obviously in the Cup Series, it is just one car, but there's only, 36 full-time cars that run.
Yeah.
So with more and more noise of Dodge, potentially Xfinity, Cup Series, or any new manufacturers coming to the sport, if you're Ford, you don't want to fall behind, because when you look at it, Hendrick or Chevys are 1A, Toyota 1B, and then Ford is a solid 2. There, I mean, you see it except for Phoenix, of course. But yeah, if you're Ford, you got to put more into your program, because you don't want to end up falling behind. And 5 years from now, when there are more manufacturers in the sport, you don't want to look at yourself and say, I'm 4th, 5th, maybe even 6th best on the grid. So I think that it's more of an indictment on Ford, but at the end of the day, I think it is a good move for Haas to get that Hendrick alliance. I think Hendrick are the lead stable in NASCAR. It's hard to debate that. They're a step above Joe Gibbs Racing, although Joe Gibbs can compete with them. So also good for Hendrick. The more alliances that they have, the more knowledge. I mean, Haas did have a couple good runs last season. So the more you know for the bow ties.
Hey, okay, let's talk a little bit about that new manufacturer. You mentioned it there.
Yep.
It's Dodge. They're coming into the Truck Series next season with a big effort from Colleague Racing. Colleague has shut down its Xfinity teams in response to just focus on 5 trucks in the Truck Series with Brendan Butterbean Queen.
Butterbean.
That is Daniel Dye and Justin Haley all taking seats there. There's an open seat, and then there's, I think this is really cool, a free agent seat. And I was reading about this on J-Ski the other day, and that seat, it's a mix of racing talent, and what they're doing with this is they're not announcing any of these drivers. They're going to announce a free agent driver the Monday leading up to each race. So this really keeps it open and injects some new life. And we've heard some rumors, people talking on the internet about who that might be. You think about a guy like Tony Stewart, who runs Dodges in the NHRA with his drag racing team. Guys like Casey Kane, who's got maybe the best record in Truck Series history. I think he's 9 of 10 for wins in the Truck Series. Casey Kane is unreal. But I'm excited about the potential of that free agent program with them. I think it can bring some really neat, interesting faces to NASCAR racing that we probably wouldn't expect to see there very often.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing what Dodge can do. I think that I want more competition in the sport, and hopefully what they do in the Truck Series will build into the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series or the NASCAR Cup Series. But it is exciting, especially the thought of names that you don't often hear too much in the Truck Series, or names that maybe have been away from the sport for a while. I mean, as you said, you're throwing out the name Tony Stewart. I mean, I always enjoy seeing, I don't know, potentially even I know Kyle Busch runs Chevys, but who knows, since Dodge is only in the Truck Series. So I would be interested to see, how successful this team can do. And good news for Colleague. If they want to invest all in Dodge, great for them. That investment could very well turn back into the Cup Series. You never know.
I think it depends on the amount of speed that Dodge has coming out of the gate. I think if they are, top 15 speed at the beginning of the year, I think a guy like Brendan Queen could be a title contender by the end of the year. I think that's a solid lineup. I think Justin Haley's a great veteran presence, a guy returning to Colleague Racing after a very long history there. Got most of that company's wins through the Xfinity Series and plate racing there. So I think that's a strong driver lineup, and we'll see who ends up coming through the door on Monday mornings throughout the season, I guess. So
and I haven't heard anything of Corey Heim. I know that he wasn't on our list of topics, but I don't believe Corey Heim has a full-time ride.
I believe you're correct. He's still under the developmental deal with 2311, so it's very possible we'll see him in some races in the Cup Series. But, no full-time ride right now for Corey Heim.
He's a driver that I'm definitely looking out for to see what he could potentially land. I mean, I've heard talks of him just running ride to ride, whether it's the Truck Series, Xfinity Series, maybe even the Cup Series. So it is interesting to have a Truck Series champion who absolutely dominated the season, miles ahead of the next best driver in the series, just not have a ride. So I'm interested to see where his career goes, this season. I think that it will be good for him to get, experience in different rides across 3 different series. So I don't know. Only time will tell on Heim time for next season. But hey, got plenty more topics to speak about on the other side of this break. Going to be sticking with the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series as well, and some other big topics on the NASCAR landscape. You're listening to Trackside. Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Trackside. We're going to wrap up this final episode of the season talking about some of the young guns in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. I always have to think about that before I say it. Xfinity just kind of wants to roll off the tongue. Carson Kvapil and Raja Karuth. Kvapil going to be running full season, but across multiple cars. Raja Karuth going to run a part-time schedule at JRM. So a couple of young guns, going to be gunning it their way through junior motorsports next year in the Xfinity Series.
Yeah, and I don't care if it's part-time or full-time. I think the smartest move that a young driver can make is to find himself a seat in some portion at junior motorsports. It is by far the strongest team on the schedule. I mean, they won half the races at least in the Xfinity Series this past season. And I think for a guy like Carson Kvapil, who, outperformed expectations, right? He made the Final Four.
Yep.
Didn't really show much at Phoenix, but that was kind of the way their season had gone in certain races. He was just kind of a top 15 guy.
Yeah.
But that's your rookie season, and not everyone's going to be Connor Zilisch out there. But I think for him, it's going to be a strong season, even if he's moving around to cars. I don't think that really matters. Like every single one of the JRM cars we know is going to be really fast throughout the season. And think of it this way too: there's a power void in the O'Reilly series with Connor Zilisch moving up to Cup. There is going to be way more opportunities to go out and get wins for these guys, and I think Carson Kvapil is one of the guys that's going to pick up in the win department with Zilisch out of there. Keep in mind too that when he's running the one car next season, he's going to have a very veteran voice, a championship presence there with Rodney Childers, who's joining Junior Motorsports as well this upcoming season. I think for Rodney, as a guy whose skills never seem to really translate to the next gen car in the Cup Series, struggled the last few years with Harvick there. He started this last season at Spire with Justin Haley and left mid-season as well. But I think Rodney Childers will be an asset to JRM, kind of with the old style of car that they're working with. And I think he can go out and get Carson Kvapil some fast cars and some wins.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what Kvapil can do. I'm also interested to see in what a guy like Raja Caruth can do. His performance in the Truck Series on a Spire car, I always felt like he had a 6th or 7th, maybe 8th place car week to week, but at the end of the day, he was able to run 6th, 7th, or 8th each week. So now when you go to JRM, I believe the 8 is going to be the 88 car that he's going to be running part-time, a car that performed very well last season, as we saw. So giving him a car that, always is going to have top 5 speed, where can he finish? And I think that's kind of how you judge these young guns. If you get a 5th place car, can you finish 5th with it? Do you finish higher than 5th? Do you finish worse than 5th? So I think that, it's going to be a big year for both Kvapil and Caruth. And frankly, JRM as a whole, they had a 75% chance to win the title last year in the Xfinity Series, and they did.
Wouldn't be the first time they did that.
Yeah, they've done it a couple times. They've done it a couple times.
That 3-1 lead as well. But, hey, I don't think for a team like JRM, like the championship is the end-all be-all. I think if you told Dale Jr. at the beginning of the year your cars would win 15 races but not get the title, I think he takes that deal.
I think so as well. So it's going to be interesting what Junior Motorsports can do. So those are all the topics that we had in Trackside. I did just want to take a moment to all the listeners out there that just want to thank you. We appreciate you. You stuck with us throughout this entire season of Trackside. No playoffs here. We're just full season points. And hopefully, you learned something about NASCAR. Hopefully me and John were that catalyst for you to potentially get into NASCAR. And, I'll tell you this, I've enjoyed sharing my love for NASCAR to all the folks out there.
Yeah, and like you said, we do this because we love the sport and we love talking about it and debating about it. I know we moaned and cried a lot of the season, but believe us, we truly love NASCAR and racing. And it's been a real fun time to share that with everybody here in the Tri-Cities watching on WJHL Plus and WJHL.com. So I'm going to miss it. So
yeah. Well, the checkered flag is waving. We got the checkered flag first. We're out here doing a burnout, doing a little victory lap. Hopefully we can drift like SVG does on his victory lap. But hey, once again, want to thank you for listening to Trackside this season. But that's a wrap on the 2025 season of Trackside. For myself and News Channel 11's John Janko, y'all have a good one.